Well, this is Shaka Khan.
Yeah.
And who are you, John?
I'm John. This is a chicken called Shaka Khan who's joining us for the special introduction. In a shameless attempt to boost subscriber numbers, we've employed the services of a chicken. But anyway, welcome to one of our sessions. We haven't had one for a very long time, actually.
She was the funky chicken.
She was the funky chicken, absolutely.
Right.
And yeah, very pleased to join you.
Yes, delighted. We've had our first ever daytime session.
So we're sober.
We're sober. We're absolutely straight as a die.
Yep. Just had cups of tea and
sheep's cheese.
Sheep's cheese, actually.
And lovely coffee infused chocolate.
Yeah.
From anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
So we're going to share some records.
Yeah.
Amazingly, that's what we do here.
I think we should probably say, if you haven't seen one of the videos before, what we do is we're in Mark's house.
Yeah.
He lives outside of London in Kent. And I come down from London and I take a box of records with me. And we try and make the records relate to each other as much as they possibly can. Although we don't, doesn't always work. But anyway, we have a good time listening to music.
And yes, big shout out to regular listeners, to new viewers, I should say. I'm so used to speaking on a radio show. And actually, this first record that I'm sharing, which is Aruf Aftab, and the album is called Vulture Prince, I believe. I discovered thanks to somebody who is a regular commenter, and I can't remember who it was, but I'm pretty sure she is originally from Iran, but I know she's based in New York. And this is a double album of just very beautiful, sort of mainly kind of quite ambient vocals, harp, violins, just very sort of exquisite, delicate, beautiful music, and very nice press on. Highly recommended double album. We listened to the track called Bagon Main, which featured Darian Donovan Thomas. And
if anybody knows the work of Susan Dayim, who's an Iranian singer, her voice sounded a little bit like her, so very beautiful. I then went for Bruce Hornsby, who's got nothing to do with Iran, as far as I know at all, and his the most recent album, the third of a trilogy really that I've been using and looking at the cues he did for Spike Lee films as basis for songs, and played the track Sidelines, which has got some fantastic production from one of our favourites on this channel, Blake Mills.
Who has definitely a history of connection with Sam Gendel and Sam Wilkes, who are another favourite on this channel. And this is the Music for Saxophone and Bass Guitar More Songs album that has recently been issued. It's been available digitally for a while, and it just has these kind of jams, really loopy jams, featuring treated sax, bass, vocal percussion, just interesting electronic-y and acoustic-y sounds. Just it's a kind of vibe which both of us really love it, and just doesn't really sound like anybody else. In fact, you can tell it's these guys within about 2 seconds of hearing one of their tracks.
And I think if you do want to pick it up on vinyl, you need to get a move on, because they seem to be going up in price all of a sudden as well. So from jams to the Jam EP from Tribe Called Quest, and I might have showed this on a very much earlier video, I can't remember, but played the track Mardi Gras at Midnight, which is a kind of classic Jay Dilla production, and it's only available on this EP, and I think on a Japanese compilation CD as well. But it's a great Dilla track, very moody, kind of some nice kind of roads and great kind of circular rhythm to it. Really, it's a good EP. This came out at the same time as Beats, Rhymes and Life.
And I think since our last video, both John and I have read the book called Dilla Time, which explains why there was a Dilla interlude.
Yeah.
And I also played the track called Conant Garden, which was where Slum Village were based, where they all came from. This is from the album Fantastic, Volume 2, in Detroit, isn't it? And a great album. I've got a feeling this was a record store day album maybe last year. Anyway, just the minimalist sound of the groove on this is just sensational.
Yeah, it is brilliant. We went in a different direction to our usual. Our usual sessions get louder. This one, you get quieter. This one got louder as it went on. I then went for a band I've always really liked, but never had any of their stuff on vinyl before. The Sea and Cake, who are kind of subset, I guess, of Tortoise, in that they involve John McIntyre, the production, and also been playing drums. And this is from an album called We, which came out in 2000, and it's just, I mean, if you know their stuff, it's kind of very mellow, kind of again quite jammy, but really kind of nicely produced, and some kind of interesting melodies. Really very, very good. If you want to kind of have play an album front to back and get some very kind of calming vibes, it's definitely a good one to do. And I played the track "You Beautiful Bastard" off this.
Ah, I didn't realise that it was called.
Yeah.
With some very nice melodic bass playing.
Very nice melodic bass playing.
Okay, we went. Bit of a left field trip. There was something about what John played that made me think this kind of worked. This is the first Quicksilver Messenger Service album, which I think is simply called Quicksilver Messenger Service, with this very tasty Rick Griffin cover. And we listened to the track called The Fool. We listened to the whole of The Fool, which is about an 11-minute track, just really enjoying the guitar work of John Cipollina, who we'd both seen when he had come and toured with Man in about 1977. And yeah, just I don't know, very completely original sound, really. West Coast psychedelic guitar experimentation.
One of the weird things about his tour with Man was he had a little kind of runway stuck out the front of the stage.
More like a walkway.
A walkway to play on. And when I saw him, it was in my local pub back room, actually. And it was quite strange because everyone was going into the pub saying, why is there a runway, a walkway halfway through the pub? So keeping with the same kind of time, something we haven't shown, I don't think, on the channel before, is the Allman Brothers Band. And I've just been really getting into the track of this called Stand Back, which is great, really funky kind of track off here. Yeah, I mean, everyone knows the Allman Brothers. I think Eat a Peach might be my favourite of their albums in terms of the studio material on there as well. Just really good to listen to. And I seem to have a test pressing of this, which I never really noticed before.
We had a little bit of Buddy Miles. This is from the album called More Miles Per Gallon, and featured Buddy playing and singing on everything as far as we could work out. I thought he wasn't playing drums, but in fact he's doing everything. Sort of starts off like a song and ends up as a jam, with some actually, well, just if you like his drumming style, it's so kind of muscular and in the kind of groove. And we listened to a track called "You Don't Have a Kind Word to Say." Not the greatest of albums, but
Sounded
pretty good.
Something about the rawness of that made me think of Bahanan, and I always loved Bahanan actually, and just played Let's Start the Dance off here, which is, I mean, just, he's still got a sound that nobody else really, I mean, yes, it was definitely disco influence, but it's much kind of rawer and tougher than that, actually. Love Bahanan.
From there, we dipped our toes into a 12-inch disco boogie single, Sharon Red, Can You Handle It, on the Prelude label. Just great bass line, so simple, but lots of live playing, strings, horns, vocals, great production, and just sounded good.
Yeah. I did a Michael Henderson special. We'll link to our two various radio shows and on a few weeks ago, well, this week actually, and obviously started listening to a lot of Norman Connors and Michael Henderson records, and just really love this album actually. This is Saturday Night Special, and played the title track off that with some, just a great, amazing lineup of musicians always on Norman Connors albums.
Great production, I thought,
great
as well.
Production as well, yeah. So, I mean, these are always incredibly easy to find at very, very low prices, as are Michael's albums, and they're some of the best music really from the 70s.
So I'd been on holiday recently, and I always go to a record shop in Bridport, which is in the southwest of England, clock Tower Records. and I discovered this album, which is White Heat is the name of the band and the album, and this is basically Barry White's live backing band. It's their one and only album, produced by him, with a very strong sort of psychedelic soul funk sound to it, which is very, well, for me, very unusual to hear in Barry White productions, but it sounds really great. And we listened to the track called Talking, but the whole album is good, and again, not an expensive album. You've just got to be able to find a copy of it somewhere.
This was an expensive album, and I think I've shown this before actually on the channel. But in this actually, there's a Barry White connection here, but it features Gene Page on arrangements and virtually all of Barry's band as well. Really nice, and thanks again to Meloman. I think it was the person who got me onto this album, or maybe it was another viewer, watcher. And this is Walter Heath and You Knew You Were Wrong, Don't You Brother? And I just played the title track off that. It just sounded right after the previous one.
Okay, staying in a soulful vibe, this is an album by Gloria Jones called Share My Love, and Gloria Jones kind of most well known for being the vocalist on the single Tainted Love, which in the UK became very famous when Soft Cell did a cover version, but also she was romantically entwined with Mark Bolan. They had a son called Roland, and she was part of T-Rex for a couple of years, I think, in the mid-70s. This album, I think, is 72 or 73. It's her one and only Motown release, and wonderful arrangement from Paul Reiser all over the place. We listened to a super funky tune called So Tired of the Way You're Treating... Oh no, no, it was that one. Yeah, I think it was So Tired of the Way You're Treating Our Love Baby. With the most incredible speedy wah-wah playing I think I've ever heard. But every track very kind of different, and she's just got an amazing voice that was reminding me a bit of Betty Davis actually, but a better version. Yeah.
I've always been very confused because there's two Gloria Joneses around. And I couldn't work out how they were both doing slightly different things, when there were two different people after all. So Sorcerer, Miles Davis, I think very much the overlooked album of that classic quintet with Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter and Tony Williams. And I love the track, the composition Mascalera of this. We had a break, I think, in between the last album. And just kind of such a great sound this band had as well. And one of my favourite. So many different really interesting versions of Mascalera. And the versions he was doing with his last quintet were fantastic. This is a particular kind of floating, interesting kind of very, very, almost some of the arrangements, they're hardly there actually. There's almost nothing happening in a way.
No, I mean, interestingly, initially I couldn't place where I knew it, but I couldn't remember where I'd heard it. I've got that album.
Yeah.
But I also thought the sound of it sounded utterly contemporary.
Yeah.
So
also, it's got the best recording of Ron Carter, I think.
Oh, yeah, it really has. Just the low end was fantastic, I thought, the real sub stuff. This album is The Way It Is from the Monty Alexander Trio on the MPS record label, which will tell you immediately that it's very well recorded. It's a live session. And to be fair, the best track is the track we listened to, which was yet another version of one of my favourite songs, People Make the World Go Round, by Tom Bell and Linda Creed. Obviously this was an all-instrumental version, but beautifully dynamic and wonderful interplay with John Clayton on the bass and Jeff Hamilton on the drums and Monty on the keys.
Then went for a CD next, and this is a relatively new CD called Freedom Over Everything from the arranger and composer, I can't see this properly, Vince Mendoza, who's worked with Joni Mitchell, Björk and a whole range of other people. I think he's really incredibly talented. And this features a whole range of people, including Derek Hodge, the bass player, Joshua Redman, also Antonio Sanchez, who played with Pat Metheny, and Black Thought from The Roots. And really shouldn't work, but really does actually. And also, I should say, of course, the Czech National Symphony Orchestra as well, just for
so you need to come into the picture a bit more.
And it's just great. It's a really, I mean, it's a kind of long piece broken into sections, but it really works. And the bit with the rap from Black Thought has, I think, been separated off and seems to be doing very well on YouTube. And there's a couple of remixes of it already. But yeah, it's a really, really good album.
It was a standout track for me, I have to say.
Fantastic stuff.
Okay, again, regular viewers will know I'm a big fan of the bass player Mono Neon, who seems to be getting more and more attention and appreciation. He's very, very prolific in terms of releases. I think this is possibly his 4th or maybe even his 5th vinyl album release in a pretty short period of time. He seems to do at least a couple of albums a year. He has I think he's without doubt one of the most innovative current players of the bass guitar. He was definitely taking it into new sonic territory. He doesn't grandstand at all on his albums. He's really into he's got a whole sort of Dadaist experimental thing, which is about his look, about what his bass looks like, about his songs, and he's beginning to collaborate with some really interesting artists. We listened to a collaboration with Steve Arrington, who some of you would know from the band Slave and stuff in his own right. Well, we listened to a very funky track called I've Got a Gold Chain with a Bad Name.
There's a very good interview with Mono Neon with Christian McBride on Mono Neon's YouTube. It's really interesting. And his two main influences are Frank Zappa and this guy, David Fusoniski, whose band The Screaming Headless Torsos I remember seeing in New York and being completely blown away by. He's a great guitarist, kind of interesting style of play, use microtones a lot, which also is something that Mono Neon, I think, uses on the bass. And this was they're still around, they've got a new lineup now, but an incredibly dynamic band with who also at this time were virtually the same as Michel Ndegeocello's backing band. And I played the track off this called Word to Herb. And I have to say, it was seeing them live in New York, it was so New York. This band actually absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, great stuff. And this is a copy signed by Fuse on the front, which I bought at the gig.
Fantastic. Well, it was hard to follow that with anything in the same genre, so I stepped into a different style and shared this amazing Studio One pressing of the album Everything Crash by Ethiopian, which I got from in fact Johnny Diana's widow, who was moving to Indonesia and was selling her entire reggae record collection. I wish I'd bought a few more records. I didn't have the cash. But we listened to a track called Empty Belly.
Sounded great.
It sounded very, very good.
Also sounded, I think, the closer to the source with it, because obviously everything is hardly, I don't know, with master tapes or any of this stuff, but that sounded really, really good. And then I played a 7-inch and played the 9 Observer tune Blood and Fire, which of course became the name of the really fantastic reggae reissue label. This has come out. These Observer 7-inches seem to be around at the moment, and they sound great. Actually, they sound like they're reasonably close to something original sounding, and it's got a great Dennis Brown track on the other side as well. I think they're going for about £6 each, which is a really good price.
That is fantastic. Yeah. Well, another reissue. This is on the Soul Brother record label, and this is Barbara Lynn, who I know from a track called "You Make Me So Hot." This is basically just a groove over 2 sides, part 1 and part 2, called Mellow Feeling, but it's a very good groove. So I would highly recommend it.
Then another 7-inch, which is on Hump Records, which was a very short-lived George Clinton label. In fact, I think it was so short-lived they only put this one 7-inch single out, I think. And it's played the B side. The A side was One of These Summers Again, which was on an album called Urban Dance Floor Gorillas. And this was the version of It's Too Funky in Here, which is a track well known as being a James Brown kind of tune, but it's not a James Brown. We found out actually. And this was arranged and produced by Sly Stone, Bootsy Collins, and George, and the horns arranged by Fred Wesley. So kind of almost like a kind of weird kind of doesn't sound like a typical P-Funk record at all, actually.
No, well, it's got a real. I mean, certainly at that particular period of P-Funk, it's very kind of all analog.
And it's only
sounds.
on here. It's never been reissued on the other format,
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Yeah.
As well.
Okay, we again took another sidestep into a bit of a salsa groove. I've just rediscovered this album by Bill Summers, who some of you will know was the percussionist with the Headhunters. Originally I was listening to the track called Come Into My Life, which had also been reissued as a 7-inch, which is a bit of a rare groove two-step classic. But then I started listening to the whole album, and wonderful version of K Sabroso with Pete Escovedo on the lead vocals. Great horn section, amazing percussion. Yeah, I mean this is a cheap Heat album, I'd say. It's Bill Summers, and it's called Feel the Heat, Feel the Cheap Heat.
I've just noticed we've done this Inquire video without testing the sound at all, so I hope we're actually recording. We'll find out in a minute. I then went for I don't know why I went for Isaac Hayes after that. It seemed like an obvious follow-on at all, but I did. This is from a great double album that was sent as a VCLT from Spinning Greek.
Yeah, Stavros.
Quite a lot of Stavros, Spinning Greek, quite a while ago. And I've just been listening to it quite a lot recently, and played the version of Dave Mason of Traffic's Feeling Alright of this, which is where the album finishes. And it's a great live album, actually, recorded in what is, I believe, a casino. And you can open the doors, as everybody does, and you get Isaac in the side as well. I have to do this. There you go. And yeah, so again, very easy to find this one, very easy one to pick up.
Yeah. And then I just, it made me think of another live album that also features Isaac Hayes, but also Dion Warwick, or Warwick as she's sometimes known, and a really fantastic version of the tune Can't Hide Love, which I originally heard on the Earth, Wind and Fire Gratitude album. Again, there's many different versions. There's a great version by Creative Source. Very funky, sort of a bit of a weird segue between that and a Donna Summer track, which obviously was very current at the time. But we were just noticing the effortless nature of Dion's vocal delivery, and actually how kind of rare that style of singing is.
Shows you can be funky and powerful without actually over singing at all.
Absolutely.
Now I finished up the Beatles from the White Album and played the tune Dear Prudence, and I kind of, it's weird, I bought, like a lot of people did, the remaster from a few years back actually, and I decided I would play this, and it sounds much better than the remaster actually. And
It did sound sensational. I
just
have to
led
say.
me to believe. I'm not sure that those Beatles remasters are really that great actually, and certainly the Abbey Road one I can't stand actually. Anyway, don't need to tell you about the Beatles. This has got all the posters and pictures still in it as well. This is my original copy.
Well, my final track, I revealed another version of this, which was the first version that I bought. Now, this is only going to mean anything to probably UK viewers of a certain age. But instead of the Dion and Isaac album inside, it was a version of 40 all-time sing-along party hits from Bernard Manning and Joe Henderson. And so we listened to If You Knew Susie Like I Knew Susie, which caused much mirth.
Yes, definitely. I should stress it wasn't the Joe Henderson we know and love from Blue Note and Milestone Fame playing with it. That would be truly bizarre.
So we've managed to get through a whole video, and we haven't mentioned anything about Mo-Fi pressings, John.
No, that's true. Well, I think
get no viewers.
I think we better say something actually.
Go on then.
I don't know what to say really.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, very much so. Yeah, and thanks for commenting. And we both do radio shows. And,
Yes, we do.
We'll put links below. I know some people who watch the videos also listen to the radio shows. So yeah.
Till next time, be good. Take care.
You take care.